Good evening from Israel. I'm at the lowest place on the surface of planet Earth, and I'm talking about the Dead Sea. And I just want to update you about something extraordinary that just happened in Ankara, the capital of Turkey, as the Russian ambassador to Turkey was shot and killed less than an hour ago as he was delivering a speech in an art gallery in Ankara. Um, there are there is no shortage of people that are against the Russian involvement in Syria. It appears to be that the Russians took side with the Shiite axis as they are attacking predominantly Sunnis. The Russians are there with the Iranians and the Hezbollah, as well as the Alawian group of the President Bashar al-Assad, and therefore the Sunnis are looking today at the Russians as their enemies. And over the last few days, there were major demonstrations of Turkish people, Sunnis, that wanted to cross the border into Syria and fight the Russians. So it didn't come to me as a surprise that something like that happened. Apparently, what we see now is a very interesting development, not between Russia and Turkey, because I don't believe that this is the case. They just reconciled not long ago because the Russians received an apology from Recep Tayyip Erdogan for the gunning down of the Russian jet just last year. But apparently, what we cannot really see, or what the media will not report, is that there's really a civil war that is going on in Turkey right now. There's almost not a single day that is passing without a major terror attack that is happening there. Over the last week, there were at least two very large explosions that killed scores of Turkish security guards and policemen and soldiers, and most of those are done by the Kurdish front, the Kurdish resistance that is against what Erdogan is doing to them. Now, Recep Tayyip Erdogan is criticizing all that is being done in Aleppo to the civilians, and the fact that civilians are being taken almost as hostages in the conflict. But he's doing exactly the same things to the Kurds in southeastern of Turkey. Turkey is almost completely divided. I mean, most of the secular Turks never ever visited their Kurdish towns, and many of the Kurds are not even allowed in the big Turkish cities. What we see is that there's a great war between the Kurds and the Turks, and all of that, of course, is instigated with what we call the Arab Spring, as well as what is going on in Syria. And we know that just last week that the car bomb that was attached to a bus full of soldiers killed 15 of them. But this is not just, again, this is not just a terror attack. This is really a war that is there to kick the Turks out of the southeastern part of Turkey. You have to understand that the older generation of the PKK, the Turkish, the Kurdish resistance movement, has mellowed down. Although their leader Abdallah Öcalan is still in prison, it is the new generation that is full of anger as he sees all the atrocities that are being done in the Kurdish towns by the Turkish army, and this is exactly what drives them to go and commit those terrorist attacks. What used to be the PKK is basically has become the resistance of close to 20 million Kurds in Turkey. And you have to understand that Erdogan is not happy with their political party in the parliament, and I'm talking about the HDP, the People's Democratic Party. Also, we know that Erdogan is really creating almost ethnic cleansing in many of those cities that they have. We know that some of those cities have become ghost towns, basically. He's destroying them. And so my point is that Turkey is right now bleeding, and Turkey is right now in sort of a civil war. And of course, the two sides here are the Kurds and the Turkish regime. And I'm not going to be surprised if the guy who is the assassin right now wants to, of course, not only kill the Russian ambassador for what he's doing, but also to embarrass the administration. But what we really need to see is that things are actually deteriorating on one side and escalating on the other side in the Turkish front. And that is pushing Erdogan to the wall. And the economy in Turkey is crumbling, is basically falling apart because of the lack of tourism and because of the lack of investors and because of the fact that the European Union will never receive them because of all that is going on right now with the challenge of the immigrants. So Turkey is right now having its back to the wall. And when countries like that are having their back to the wall, they become very dangerous and they make dangerous moves. So having Putin with his problem right now at home with his economy, having the Turks with their economical problems, and having the Iranians with their economical problems, creates an axis of three countries that are somehow eager and desperate to improve their situation. And I'm trying to be very careful in the words that I'm using, but a war might actually help that cause. And so when I read Ezekiel and I see that alliance between those three countries that are right now collaborating, whether they want it or not, because these are the three major countries that are present in Syria right now. So to see that, I'm really not surprised. I also want to tell you that there is a lot that is going on in Europe right now. The Europeans are extremely angry with the rise of Islam over there, with the problems that we have with the immigrants over there. I know that even just few minutes ago in Switzerland, in Zurich, there were some shootings and some wounded people in the Islamic Center over there. And we hear about so many incidents across Europe that people are saying enough is enough. We're not willing for Europe to be taken by Islam. So the tension between Europe and Islam is rising. The tension between the Kurds and the Turks in Turkey is rising. The tension in Syria, now, everybody's trying to portray Aleppo's fall as a great victory and the end of the civil war in Syria. But let me tell you, in Syria, there's about 100,000 rebels and tens of thousands of ISIS members as well. And it's not going to end quickly. In fact, I believe that the easiest part is over. We're now getting to the more serious part. people are about to take off their gloves right now and move to somehow seize a more dangerous and deadly and lethal weapon than just grenades and shotguns. And this is exactly where Israel is keeping its eyes open. This is exactly why we have the new F-35s, because we are able right now, we will be also able once we get more of them, to go under the radars of all those sophisticated weapon systems that the Russians brought and the Iranians brought into Syria, and so we can take care of business. It's funny because Israel is an island of sanity and peace right now. I mean, the only thing we're dealing with right now in Israel is basically the rain that we have. But all around us, there are so many crazy things that are happening right now. And Israel, as I reported before, is developing more and more relationships with different countries in the region. Not only that we just signed a deal or a pact with Greece and Cyprus to cooperate together, and which the Turks don't like, to say the least. Not only that we just had relationship with Azerbaijan, Muslim Central Asian country that just purchased from Israel Iron Dome, and not only that, we also went to Kazakhstan, the 9th largest country in the world. All of that is showing to all of you that the conflict in the Middle East is basically going to be isolated to only those countries that Ezekiel mentioned in his 38th and 39th chapter. So it's quite interesting to see how at the time that you have war and you have tension rising with those countries that Ezekiel mentions, Israel is actually prospering and enlarging its circle of supporters and people that are willing for the first time to come and declare publicly that they are not only friends with us, but they want to do business with us, which also contribute to the Russian dissatisfaction with us. All it takes right now, once now Iran, Russia, and Turkey are together, all it takes right now is sort of a wrong move in their eyes from Israel's side to just come and get rid of, or try to get rid of, the troublemakers that are stealing our glory and our economy here in the Middle East. So I'm watching what's going on right now. It's on one hand, it's not nice to see what is going on with Aleppo. I was very encouraged, at least, to see that over the last 24 hours, 5,000 people were peacefully brought out of the city. But my heart breaks to hear about all the others that are being killed and murdered. And it's interesting because right now, finally, the Russians are allowing some foreign peace observance to come and somehow supervise the transition of civilian population out of the city. But basically what happens is that the whole world is sending people to witness Aleppo's not only falling, but Aleppo's transfer of population. Aleppo is going to be left completely a ghost town, completely destroyed, and that which happens right now to Aleppo might be actually the case of Damascus in the future, which, that is exactly what the prophet talked about, a city that will be a heap of ruins and uninhabitable. So we see a lot of things happening right now, quite interesting, quite fascinating, of course alarming to those of you who are probably afraid of tensions that are rising, but I feel very comfortable. I mean, I feel safe and secure in my country. Our eyes are open, and we're watching what's going on around us. This is exactly why the Prime Minister Netanyahu is committed to enlarge the circle of other countries that we can do business with and we can renew our relationship with. And I want to tell you that even Saudi Arabia is openly engaged in talks with Israel, and even the Gulf countries are watching what's going on right now, and they're saying actually Israel is the least of our problems, maybe even a friend that we can rely on. So quite fascinating to see countries that were the traditional enemies of Israel, those who saw us as the enemy and Satan, are now looking at us and saying, well, Israel is actually, after all, not a bad thing, considering the fact that Russia and Iran are deep in Syria, and they're basically killing and massacring mostly Sunni people. So the Sunni world, which is comprising 85% of Muslims, is for the most part looking at us as differently than before. Nevertheless, we have to remember that Turkey is Sunni, and Libya and Sudan are Sunnis, and some of those countries, as you know, will try to settle their account with Israel once Gog will make the move, and we're going to have that war that Ezekiel prophesied about. Interesting developments. Keep your eyes on Damascus, as I always said. What's going on in Turkey, what's going on in Iran, what's going on in Iraq, in Mosul, what's going on with ISIS. All these things are basically somehow influencing that which eventually will happen in Damascus. And I said before, Damascus is the eye of the storm for the beginning of Ezekiel's war. So Isaiah 17 has to take place, and that will explain to all of you why in Ezekiel Syria is not even mentioned as one of the countries. Syria basically won't exist as a country once Ezekiel's war will take place. These are the things I wanted to report. Again, the Russian ambassador to Turkey was just assassinated just an hour ago. He was pronounced dead right now. Some people are still held as hostages by the person who killed him. A lot of things are happening right now. Keep your eyes open. Turkey, as I said, is engaged in what they refuse to admit, but it's a civil war, and there's, again, almost 20 million Kurds are not happy with the way the Turkish government is handling them, and we see some interesting things that are happening. Again, Israel is safe, Israel is secure. I'm touring right now with 90 people from Indonesia and Singapore, and we're having a time of our life. But we hear, even a terrorist attack in Jordan, terrorist attack in Sinai, in Egypt, terrorist attacks, of course, in Syria and Lebanon and Turkey. Things are escalating all around us, but praise God, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. I would like to encourage all of you, again, to download our app to get the latest news of what's going on here in the Middle East. I would like also to tell you that we're encouraged to see that many of you registered to get our news updates on email. Just go to beholdisrael.org and just subscribe to get our weekly news in an email format. Also, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have our website, and I'm very encouraged that there are a lot of things to be able to share with so many people around the world. You all know that my heart is also for Europe. As you know, I believe that Western Europe is where the Antichrist is going to come from, and I get more and more invitations from Europe, and considering the fact that there are not that many believers in Europe, it just is quite fascinating. So I've been to Croatia, and I'm planning to go back there to Serbia and also other countries, but I just received today another invitation from Romania, and of course we have France and England and in Norway and the Netherlands in line, and of course we've got Mexico, Canada, US, and in Asia we have Japan and Singapore, Indonesia, and the Philippines. So there's a lot of stuff, and of course Australia, a lot of stuff is going on. time is getting short. God is on the move. And my question to all of you is, international news are telling us that we're getting close. The things that God spoke through his prophets are indeed happening. The question is not if the world is getting ready. The question is not if God is performing that which he said he will. The question is, are you ready? Is the bride of Christ ready for his return? And I believe, and this is almost the theme of what I'm going to share in 2017, I believe that we need to get ready, to prepare ourselves as the bride, and then to ask him to come. The Spirit and the bride say, come. And so I'm excited to share that message for New Year. Also tuned for my Christmas message. Again, I don't believe Jesus was born on the 24th, but since the world celebrate his birth in a few days, I have a message about the day that he was born. Not to talk about the date as much as to talk about the story of the birth of Christ and how we see amazing things that the scriptures are teaching us. So stay tuned for my Christmas message, which is called The Day He Was Born, and also for my New Year's message, which is called The Spirit and the Bride Say, Come. We're also very encouraged to see that a lot of people chose at the end of the year right now, the tax year, to help us financially also, which will allow me to be able to travel across the world without having to worry about those things. You know, sometimes I travel to countries that easily can, pay my way, and I'm not talking about paying me money, I'm talking about covering the expenses. But sometimes I am going to countries or to churches that are not able to cover those expenses, and I never ever say no to a church just because they cannot cover the expenses. I will always say yes. For me, it's the Holy Spirit that has to lead me to say yes, and it's an invitation from the leaders of the church and not from anyone else, because I don't want to come from the back door. I want to come from the front door, and I want to honor and respect the pastors of the churches in those countries. So it's never about the funds, and it's never about the money. And I thank many of you that felt on their hearts at the end of the year to donate to Behold Israel, and it seems like we will be able to pull it off and to make it throughout 2017 with all the extensive traveling and the other exciting things that we have, like the book that is coming out, a book that will be called The Last Hour, and also some other things. I'm going to use some of those funds to have scholarship for some young adults and bring them to Israel, part of the young adult tour. Some of them cannot afford it, and that shouldn't stop us from having them come to Israel. Also, there's many other operational things that we'll need. So really, really thank you for your giving and mostly for your prayers and for your support. I also want to tell you that we're encouraged to see that there's a lot of people that wrote us questions for the next Q&A. I'm not sure when, but it's probably going to be on Sunday. I know it's Christmas, so maybe I'll just have to postpone it to a day or two later, but it won't happen before that, as I'm traveling with my group, and later on we'll be busy doing other things. The Lord has opened also the doors for me to be able to be a guest on an Israeli TV station, secular TV station, that know perfectly that I'm a believer, and they have no problem with hosting me on a panel speaking about biblical aspects and biblical events and biblical places. And I made it very clear that unless they let me speak and say exactly what I believe in, I'm not coming. So, and I'm invited. So God is good. Keep praying for us. Thank you for all of your love and support and prayers. And I will tell you, shalom from the lowest spot on the surface of planet Earth, from the Dead Sea, right here in Israel. Stay in touch, and God bless you all. Shalom.